Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about big news around the UFC when next year there is a potential location for the UFC to do an event at the White House. I'll explain that a little bit more, but before I get into the video, if you guys can, please hit the subscribe button and let's shoot for 10 likes on this video. Anyways, let's get into it. So this all started when I was hearing rumblings about a collab with the UFC in the White House from this video of Donald Trump.
Are going to have special events in honor of America 250, and I even think we're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have. Does anybody watch UFC? The Great Dana White. We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little. We're not. Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have some incredible events. The UFC fight's going to be a big deal.
So then after watching that video, then I come across some tweets from Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor on his Twitter had to say this as well. So then we go to Conor McGregor's tweet. It's essentially saying here about how next year for the UFC White House event, it will be on a Saturday. And he essentially just wants to be on that event, which is interesting, right? Now, I've been very skeptical about, I've been very critical about Conor McGregor and the UFC if he will ever fight again in the UFC. And I still think that this is just all talk, but hypothetically, if Conor McGregor were to come back, this White House event could persuade a lot of those fighters who aren't too keen in wanting to fight in the UFC anymore that could just give it one more shot. I think Conor McGregor is one of them, while another one that I have been seeing recently is also Jon Jones. So according to Happy Ones right here, they're saying that Jon Jones hinted at wanting to fight at President Trump's UFC White House event, saying fighting at the White House, and then we go up to a post after, and he also says that he also says just re-entered the testing pool. Figured we'd keep everyone's options open. So my thoughts on the UFC and White House collab, it's honestly kind of random in my personal opinion. I know Trump and Dana are friends, but to kind of think that at the White House there will be a sporting event, if not like combat sports event where people are fighting each other at a very monumental area like the White House, that is not in my bingo cards. I don't even want to say my bingo cards within the next few years. In my lifetime, I would never think that a UFC event could potentially happen at a White House. It's very interesting. I would never expect that. But listen, we're in the possibilities now that the UFC can be at the White House next year. And with Conor McGregor tweeting about him wanting to find this, White House card, same with Jon Jones, if he wants to unretire himself, get himself back into the pools and fight in front of the president, like he said. Then we, obviously have two big stars that want to fight on this, historical event at the end of the day. Any event that happens at the White House is historical at the end of the day. Potential once in a lifetime event that the UFC does, right? So the route that I would go if I was UFC, honestly, you don't give either of those the opportunity. I know maybe, and now I know it may seem crazy because Jon Jones is Dana White's like favorite fighter, and Conor McGregor is where the UFC is at today in all respects, right? Uh, I know. Listen, I know it sounds crazy to say that you don't give either of those fighters uh, the opportunity to fight in the White House. I just think Conor McGregor's been inactive way too long, and Jon Jones, he just retired and he's unretired, and he made the whole. I think he deserves a little bit of a pushback for holding off on the Aspinall fight at the end of the day, right? It wasn't really clear what he wants, and they couldn't get the fight, and I think a lot of it has to do with John, and so I feel like the pushback that they should give to Jon Jones is honestly not fighting this one, right? Especially if he wants to unretire himself. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for the UFC to make the next face of the company. And they tried doing that with Sean O'Malley back at the UFC Sphere. Obviously, plans kind of failed on that. And they were kind of forcing Sean O'Malley to be that face, which it didn't necessarily work out, in my personal opinion. But someone who's kind of natural of having the fans liking Ilya Tapiria, not only just with the mic skills, but also the way that he fights. within his matchups, like the Max Holloway ones of Volk, this past one with Charles Oliveira, right? I think Ilya Tapiria deserves to fight at the main event of the U.S. White House, and he could fight, I don't know, maybe him and Makachev, that mega fight, make that at the, UFC White House. I know both of them are not American, but it doesn't matter. There's so many eyes that are going to be at this card, or overall just the company in itself, that if you have the potential to make that next big person, it's Ilya Tapiria. I know Ilya Tapiria is already big in itself within the UFC, and just broad outside of it, anyways. But I feel like to be at its peak, like potentially reaching Conor McGregor levels, right? Ilya Tapiria main eventing that card would 100% get you that reward if they play their cards right, make their right opponent, and put it on that White House card. That's what I truly think. Don't give it to Conor McGregor and John Jones, where they've been in and out of the sport. They're not active within the UFC. And give it to someone, who A, deserves it, but B, already has the fans interested to begin with. And the way that he fights and knocks out these fighters, you bring it in a broader scale. And you know what? The UFC has its cert has and the UFC officially will have their face of the company. So yeah, if you guys like this video and want more videos like this, please hit the like, comment, and subscribe button. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.